Hi guys, Sarah here. This is the Irwin Mitchell Mentoring Club and I'm here chatting with Dan, Tim and Nabs from Old Leamingtonians. So looking forward to seeing what we can do, what we're chatting through, how we can support. But over to Tim to give us a bit of an overview about rugby at Old Leamingtonians.
We're a big club with some great facilities in the heart of a community. We have about 450 mini and junior boys and girls players, a large successful cult section, an under-23 squad, 3 senior men's teams, 1 senior women's team, a fast-growing mixed ability team, along with a large squad of O2 players. We just have some challenges or some improvements that we'd like to make with the club and the way that we do things. So, one of the areas that we'd like to focus on, it's important for our club that we get as many of the 14 to 18-year-olds to progress up to senior rugby, both boys and girls. Do you have any insight in how we can maintain these players across those years into the senior section?
And some of the things that I've seen work quite well in the past is potentially having almost a bit of a player mentor, or that from their age group above that can work with other players, or just generally chat in with them, check in if they're at training on the same night, like catch up how they're doing, or they can go and watch their game on a weekend, and just sort of so they're already developing those relationships with players, so it's not as daunting to go into that next age group. And I think also potentially looking at players that are in your senior side that have come through the junior ranks and maybe getting them to share their story. Another way you could look at it at times, I know when the seasons are sort of starting to come to the end, maybe take the top end of one age group with the bottom end of the other, and maybe do some sort of like training or social interaction, so they've already almost met each other before they then take on the following season, just to try and ease those boundaries and have familiar faces, so when you get to the training session you've got someone to talk to and it's not quite as daunting.
So I've been training with the women's for a year and a bit now, and it's quite helpful because obviously you get the experience in your own gameplay, and we all play like from under 13s to under 18s, we all train together. But then it kind of, you gain your experience from like the older like age groups, so the ladies, they like tell you what gameplay is like, they teach you new skills, and then it's quite good that we all train together because then we can tell the younger years about it. So in like the ladies team especially, I think there's more of a like communication like channel that's constantly happening.
I think that's so important because you're seeing people and talking to people from older age groups. It just makes it easier, and then it does help with that transition through.
So Sarah, especially with COVID, do you think you have any suggestions on what we could do to build and strengthen our club culture for the 14 to 18-year-olds and going into the senior rugby, so we can keep them engaged with the club?
One of the things I think could help your club is almost like asking the players what they want, like almost maybe getting with you and just saying, right, we want to do some sort of social activity. What is it that people would want? And maybe just trying to think outside the box. We're in compete to win teams at England, so we get put into like a group of probably about eight players, and each team has to think of a challenge to do for other people. So it might be you could do a crossbar challenge, for example. So or you could, I don't know, like do an obstacle course or something that's within what your coaches want. Do you know what I mean? Those sorts of things, that just trying to think a bit outside the box, but going back to your peers and saying, well, actually, you know what? It's a bit tough at the minute. We want to have a bit of fun. What do you think would be a good idea? So you put in your sort of leadership skills into practice as well.
I really like the idea of teams to compete and compete to win. What do you think, Nabs? Do you think that kind of cross club idea of doing a social thing would work for us?
I think, yeah, probably, because I think people feel a bit like disconnected at the moment, like especially with the girls team. Like we have one WhatsApp group, but we don't really see each other very often, and then like people kind of like have been joining and stuff, so maybe having like that ongoing like competition or like something fun that we're competing against each other, it'll keep like lines of communication open, like it'll keep that kind of teamwork spirit like back up.
If you start to do social things interacting between different age groups and different sections of the club, it just probably breaks down those barriers between people, and hopefully it can help with the on-field transition of players going from age group to age group as well.
So as a coach, if somebody new rocked up tomorrow for one of your sessions, and you've got a session structured already, do you feel as though you're going to do your best to engage that person, but there's also a lot of opportunity for the senior players to get engaged in that process, to invite them into the squads, into the playing community? Is that the right way round to do it?
The reason I believe that I still play rugby today is because I absolutely loved my first rugby session. So the coach that I had made it fun, made it really engaging. It wasn't about how good at rugby or needing to know all the knowledge of the game or being the best player in the world. It was purely about creating a session and an environment that I'd want to go back to week in, week out. So that for me, like, is kind of resonated as I've gone through my playing career, and probably as I've gone on to develop as a coach, is that first interaction new people have is so important. So for example, Nabs, if a new person comes up, like almost taking that initiative to go and be like, I'm almost going to take responsibility, or I'm going to get a group of the key players that I know maybe the most welcoming, or maybe the more senior players, to go and help that player, and maybe obviously if you've got a session plan for that player, maybe to sort of buddy up with them throughout the training session to maybe try and explain what's going on, and just try and support them through that training session, because those little personal touches make all the difference, especially with new players and potentially in the women and girls games, more inexperienced players.
So Sarah, obviously currently it's quite a challenging time with COVID and everything, and it's a bit difficult for like new players and like experienced players and stuff. How would you recommend that we keep like sessions varied and like interesting still?
For coaches, it can be quite challenging to sort of think of new things, or to think of things to keep players engaged. I think this time is a really good opportunity to maybe look at more of the finer skill areas of what people can do. So rather than maybe just play like games, for example, you can actually use this time to really push on people's development. Potentially coaches could spend a bit more time in terms of maybe doing a bit of a development plan for players, and can look at part of their training of having like specific skill sessions for different blocks, and then you could do it. If the age group has got positions, you could look at some positional stuff, obviously within the realms of what you can do currently. So if it's jumping technique or things like that, it's just trying to think a little bit outside of the box.
I know that we've tried some specialist positions in terms of the fly halves from the Colts have spoken to the under-17s and run a session for the under-17s fly half. Dan, you were part of that approach. Did you learn anything from those who are older than you, and did you impart anything to those younger than you?
I did a training session with one of I think he was 2 years below me. He was number 10. And I think that was really, I think we connected as well. And I think we both helped each other, because he had a lot of things I didn't think about when playing as 10.
So Dan, obviously it sounds like you've been sort of connecting on levels with people with other positions, but I guess from a mentoring perspective, in terms of you mentoring similar age groups and maybe being mentored, how do you find that in terms of a connectivity point of view?
I think it's a lot easier to to understand teaching points from someone that's a similar age of you to you?
I think it's quite helpful, like having someone who's been through the same things as you, probably like thought the same things and stuff, like having that relatability and like that mentoring, it makes you feel a bit more comfortable with like what you're learning, and like you can really like, as well as relating to them on like a skill level and like learning certain things that they're doing, like bettering yourself, you also kind of get that comfortable like personability about the whole mentoring, rather than a coach, which you kind of see as someone who's like in some situations much older than you, probably doesn't play the sport as much as you. Like it just makes it easier to learn and to like actually want to develop, because you see where you could be, rather than just someone who's telling you what to do.
Dan, Tim, Nabs, it's been great having a chat with you as part of the Irwin Mitchell Mentoring Club. I hope some of what we've talked about can really help your club go on and thrive, and help some of the challenges you have. I look forward to catching up with you in a few months' time to see whether you've put anything in practice and to see how things have been going on.